Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining Creativity in COVID. We have some fantastic guests on today, but I'm gonna I'm gonna give Michael the opportunity to introduce everyone. This is a partnership between the Oregon Brewers Guild, the Caputo Group, Zeppelin Media, and Bing. And so we all come together every Wednesday to offer just fantastic information and have a beverage together. So again, thank you all for joining us. I do want to give you a heads up that we are recording. So if I get my insert expletive here together, it will be available. If it's not available, you know what happened and who to blame. In addition, I think we're gonna kind of give Michael a moment. He's got a bunch of questions he's going to ask, but feel free. We're going to make sure that there's times right in between to ask questions. I think it creates a much more lively conversation. I also recommend, so that you can kind of see everybody, if you are comfortable, show your face so we feel like we have more of a community around us. It's also kind of fun to put it in grid view so you can see who you're talking to. Thank you, welcome. And if someone's in the middle of having a great conversation, but you have a burning question, feel free to ask it in chat, and we'll make sure it's answered. If you would prefer to ask something anonymously, you can private message me, Maud Haney, and I will ask it for you, and I won't out you. Yeah, so at this point in time, I'm gonna send it over to Michael to introduce some of the cool things that he does and the fantastic folks we have on this webinar today.
Cool. Thanks, Maud and Charlie, for putting this together. And yeah, this is, I believe, our fourth time together. And the purpose of these is to help connect folks with resources and ideas during this weird time, which only seems to get weirder. And you know what just happened here, if you weren't logged on here with us about 10 minutes ago as we were getting started, you can see in the chat right now the press release from Governor Kate Brown on the reopening of phase 1 for Multnomah County, happening Friday. And that's just kind of been sort of how things go through COVID. We're all adapting and changing and shifting, and along the way there's been folks who have stood out as having some great ideas and some great responses to this, and I think it can help all of us to understand how they came to these ideas, how the logistics of these ideas came about, so that maybe in our own businesses we can say, hey, I like that piece of what they're doing there. How can I adjust that and make that work for me and in my business, or however, wherever you might work. So with that, today we had 3 guests lined up. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So we've got Brian Cook from Lombard House, and Steve Waters from Backwoods Brewing Company. Our other guest was going to be the director of operations at Pizza Schmitza, and we might still catch him later on one of these. The idea is we want to kind of talk about what things are looking like for Brian and Lombard House during things as they're closed. Steve at Backwoods kind of fits into the middle there, where he has a pub in Carson, Washington that's been open for a while now and has actually entered phase 3 for Washington in that county. And then at the same time has a pub in Portland that is still with the to-go orders. And then with Schmitza being all in Oregon and 25 locations, we were going to explore a little bit more of how they're responding differently in different places. But this is good. This I know I'll be able to get through all of my questions, and we might get done just a little sooner, so the late start's not so bad. Brian, for those of us just right off the bat who might not be extremely familiar with Lombard House, just real quick, tell us where's Lombard House and what, just kind of an overview of what Lombard House is, where you're located.
So we're located in St. John's, right not like the downtown heart of St. John's that most people picture by the bridge, but people call it East St. John's. Most people probably know the St. John's beer porch and food carts. We're directly across the street from there. We kind of had a little bit of a partnership with the food carts. But we're a little shotgun. We're 12 by 38, so we're tiny. So it's a challenge to operate normally. So we'll be 4 years old on September 15th. You know, and we by any means we're a pretty small boat. Like we don't do crazy numbers, but that's also pretty good because we haven't had. I don't have the overhead or some of the other headaches that some of you guys have with like a bigger operation. But yeah, we're just a little tiny. We're 12 taps, just beer, wine, cider, and that's it. And we're like pretty much a shoebox little. It's an odd building. I would have never designed the bar that way. If you've been in there, you kind of know what I mean.
So to take you back, Brian, to 2.5 months ago, you know, when the stay-at-home orders happened, how quick was it that you shifted? What was your initial response as a business, and how quick were you able to pivot into some sort of a delivery or to-go model?
It was oddly really quick, but my wife and daughter and I were in Hawaii visiting her parents for the 2 weeks prior. So I was sort of watching it from afar while my employee ran the place, and I kind of made the decision that I was going to close when I got back, just because the way things were going. And then about 24 hours before we left, she shut us down. Honestly, I smoked half a joint with my father-in-law and had a couple beers and called OLCC and was just like, is there any way I could deliver beer? Like, I had no idea that was an option, but I figured I'd just ask. And oddly enough, if you have a to-go license, you've already been able to do deliveries next day the whole time, which I didn't know. And for nothing, I could amend that to a same-day delivery. So I just sort of was like, well, I have a van. I have this beer I have to sell. My initial plan was just sell everything off and then batten down the hatches. But it was oddly quick. And I would say, like, for as much as people give the OLCC a hard time, they made it super easy for me to fix that. Like, I was in the airport and they called me to say that I couldn't do mason jars, that I had to just buy closed containers from breweries. And I, like, not very politely was like, that's ridiculous. When I worked at Cerveza, we sold mason jars. Just call me back when the answer is yes. And he called me back in like 10 minutes and had fixed that. So yeah, it's pretty, from like that standpoint, it was pretty quick.
I've heard that
I was going to do, but it was quick.
I've heard that the OLCC has become, I mean, you're not the first person to say that they've become a lot easier to deal with. Would you echo that as well, that you found them to be pretty hospitable during all of this?
I mean, I lost my temper and cussed at my agent and said, like, call me back when you fix this. Because, like, I was honest. They need if we don't exist, then they don't exist. So, like, if he wants a job, then we need our jobs, was sort of my attitude at that point, because I didn't know what to do. Because if I couldn't do that, I would be out of business by now.
Now, after you started doing deliveries and bottling things up in mason jars, it was how long was it before this idea to incorporate music?
That was like a couple weeks, I guess. I had the idea, but it took me a couple weeks to ask Louis, because I didn't really know him that well. But I knew he had a music venue, and he was expressing concern about, like, what the hell they were going to do. So I figured it would be an option. Like maybe he could start with me and then move on and do his own thing, which, is a way to generate money for the Laurel Thirst.
So for those that don't know, who's Louis, and what is it exactly that you're doing now with this deliveries with live music?
So every other Thursday, Louis Longmire, he's one of the co-owners of the Laurel Thirst, which is like one of the venues I really fell in love with when I moved to town. He is following me, and for $20, you get like a little mini concert in your driveway, 2 or 3 songs, and so we drop off the beer, and then he has his van hooked up where he has like a little studio in the back. It's pretty crazy. He pops open the back doors and plays in your driveway. So
I want to.
That the $20 goes to the Laurel Thirst, and then my tips each day, I do that with him, go to Laurel Thirst, and that's kind of helping, like, keep the bills paid.
That's awesome. I actually wasn't aware of the part that the tips and things were going to Laurel Thirst. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I want to show folks real quick just what that looks like. I'm going to share my screen here, and you will see what this setup that Brian just described. There it is. There's the tip jar. I don't know if everybody can see that okay, but just prop open the back of the van. You got the amplifier and guitar, and off you go. Huh? This video, by the way, is from New School Beer. This is at Ezra's house, I believe.
Yeah, we did a delivery to Ezra, and he filmed it and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and again, it was a stupid idea. I was like, honestly, another inspired by, like, kind of powered by weed ideas, I have to get weird in the backyard and think of weird stuff to do. So, I don't know. I just think right now, like, nothing's a bad idea. It's definitely going to fail if you don't try it.
And I like what you said there. I like 2 things that you said there. But yeah, definitely this situation has put a lot of businesses in a place that where creativity does come from a place of, well, if we don't try something, we're gonna fail. If we don't do something different, failure is the other option. You are, however, probably the first person to join us here on Creativity and COVID that has suggested that you just smoke a joint and the ideas will come. And I think probably you're not the first one that used that tactic. You might just be the first one that talked about it. And
I don't have any, like, I'm kind of a dummy. I just think of ideas and try.
No, it's a great thing to see, and it's that outside of the box type of thinking that I think that's where people are succeeding. And whether I would say this, that a lot of folks that have shared their ideas here on creativity and COVID, they would say, hey, we're not making bank at this. We're not printing money with this idea, but we're having an impact and we're staying relevant. What are your feelings on that? Like, did this have an impact, and what kind of attention did you get from media that's going to last beyond this?
Well, I probably lose money on the days I do the music thing, honestly, like, because I can crank I do like less than half the normal delivery day, but it's like, it's so therapeutic. Like, and it's just nice to see, like, people remember why we're a bar, like what live music was, and like the neighbors come out, and it's just a little respite. So it's probably not, like, again, I'm not a great businessman. It's probably not the best. I'm not making bank on it, but I think, I've gotten a few new customers from the neighbors being like, what the hell is that? Like,
Yeah,
music.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just something to, like, I don't know how to say it, but just like remind, like, things are weird right now, and it's like a little bit of normal and a little bit of, like, music. I'm a big fan of live music, and like I hadn't heard live music in a couple months until I heard him play, and it was selfishly, it was really nice.
I have one more question for you before I'm going to ask Steve some questions. Just want to take your temperature on what you think about the Eagles' coming season. How are they shaping up?
Well, I never have any other expectations but disappointment because I'm a lifetime Eagles fan. I'd be shocked if there's football, honestly, but like I guess there's going to be. So every year I say we're going to win the Super Bowl. We never do, except for the once. But I think you're looking at like a 9-7 squad.
I think
Charlie
Brown has something to say about that.
Agreed. So you got no argument for me with
No,
I would like to see the Detroit Lions win the Super Bowl this year. I guess it would be my hope.
it's 2020. Anything can happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 20. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Not
No, that's awesome. Thanks, man. And yeah, I loved the double doink collab that you guys did with Grains of Wrath here a while back.
Yeah, and that was another weird. Like the guys, they drunk dialed me the night of the Oregon Beer Awards and told me they were gonna make an Eagles collab. And again, we were thinking of it, and we're like, we should just ask Chris Long if he'd be part of it, and then he gave us permission to use his face and his likeness, and half the can money went to the Chris Long Foundation. So
That's awesome.
ideas,
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks, Brian. Stick around because I think people might have some other questions for you. And actually, before we transition, real quick, anyone have questions right now for Brian before we move forward? Zach, I see your hand raised. Unmute yourself and ask away.
Hey, yeah, I had a question about music licensing when you're traveling around like that, because we're thinking of doing a live music stream as part of the Drink Beer, Be Kind virtual fest. I have all 3 licenses, CSAC, BMI, and ASCAP for our pub. Not that I've used them for about 3 months, but how does that apply when you, like, if that dude sitting in the back of the van happened to be playing cover songs and you have an audience of indeterminate size, has anybody looked into music licensing on that?
I would tell the ASCAP rep that he seems intoxicated and he has to leave my bar if he came into bar. It works. Legally,
Yeah,
he has to leave if you say that to him by Oregon law.
Yeah,
They
they cold call all the time. They, about once a month we get a phone call like, do you have any live music? Do you have karaoke night? Do you have?
I mean, those producers can F off at this point. Like, if that's their battle, I think there's no one that I would say, I mean, if they bother you, just, I think I don't have I'm sure someone would have a better answer. I just tell them to beat it and find something better.
Sure.
And it's probably not, there's a liability issue that I'm not qualified to answer.
Right. No, my question was just if you have looked into it. That's all.
I haven't at all, no. I had that happen when they came into the pub when I was first open, but I actually just switched to Fruition and called my permission over the phone to play their song. So
Gotcha.
But no, it actually makes me want to look into that because I never really thought of that. I do think if you're doing it, is it going to be at your place or is it going to be mobile?
Zach, looks like we lost your sound.
I think if it's not in your place, then the ASCAP stuff doesn't apply.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm hiding in the basement. My connection's not great.
That's a great that was a great question. Anybody else with questions for Brian?
Where do I sign up for you to come to my house, Brian?
Just text. So I post the lists every day that I'm delivering, and I've kind of expanded. I was just doing North Portland at first. I would encourage you. I know Imperial Bottle Shop's doing takeout and deliveries, I believe. There's some other places, and if there's a place near you, I'd encourage you to use them. But our Instagram or Facebook has the list, and then when I applied for my liquor license, I stupidly put my cell phone down, so that's our business number. So you just text me your name and address and email, and I show up.
With the music.
Oh, with the music, it's every other Thursday. And actually, Louis doesn't feel right doing it right now with all this. We've kind of put we both agreed it's not the right time to be like, it feels a little weird right now. So we put a couple week hiatus on it out of respect for other things. And then we're going to revisit it in a few weeks. So as of right now, it's kind of on hold.
To know. Yeah.
So as things, like we heard, as Multnomah County moves into phase one, you imagine the deliveries and the music deliveries are something that are going to be a part of your future for a while?
I would imagine the music deliveries will have a kind of evaporating shelf life as we open up, and hopefully the people who are doing that to hustle now will have like other avenues to make real money and like get their living back together. We've done live music at the bar, and I'll certainly look into doing that because in some ways limited capacity almost helps me have music, especially outside. But yeah, I think I'm probably gonna wait a few weeks before I open up because I rely a lot on air conditioning, and I can't do that this summer. So I'm only going to be able to be open in the backyard on nice days. So I probably won't leap into like the phase one as quickly as others because I just don't know that. I'm making about a little less than 50% of what I made before now. And if I open up at 50% capacity, like I don't foresee myself even making as much as I make with deliveries. So I'm going to give it a wait and see.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Brian? All right. Right on.
Hey Brian, how many seats do you think you can get in the backyard there?
So all 6 of my picnic tables are 6 feet, and I have them spread out where I'll be able to use all of them.
Yeah.
I have those garden beds. I have the benches for 2 people in between, and the beds are oddly 6 feet wide. So depending on like group size, if I had 6 tops come in, I could use all 6 tables and I think be within compliance. And our weird outside bathroom actually comes in really handy. Yeah. And we're just going to keep that locked like gas station style. Yeah. You'll have to get the key. Yeah. And we have if you haven't been to Lombard House, we have like a little like snack bar window that opens up to our deck. So I can serve beers right from the bar to the outside window. So I mean, we'll see. I also don't want my customers, I just don't want people to feel like they have to rush back to support me and like be terrified while they're sitting there. So I'm like,
that makes sense.
And I really don't want to get anyone. The numbers are kind of scary right now. So I don't know. I change my mind every 15 minutes about that.
Right on.
Yeah. And thank you guys for having me. This is interesting. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
All right, Steve, you can unmute yourself. There you go. And so, Steve, how many weeks has it been now? Well, you know what? Let's back up. Hold on. Before I jump into it, for those that may be unfamiliar with Backwoods, give us the 10,000-foot overview of Backwoods Brewing Company and what you do, where you got locations, and how long you've been at it.
Yeah, we are a family-owned brewery. It's me and my brother who run the day-to-day at Backwoods. And we started so my parents own a grocery store, and they are my bosses. I'm the CEO of Backwoods. My brother's the COO. His name's Tom. And so my parents own a grocery store. 8 years ago, they said, hey, we're not using the other half of this building. What should we do? And then, of course, we were all like, well, let's start a brewery. What the hell could possibly go wrong? So Backwoods the Carson pub in that second half of the building is still basically as it was, except that we moved the brewery down into Stevenson, Washington, which is where I'm sitting right now. And then in 2018, we opened our Pearl pub in the Pearl district of Portland there. And so things were going along very swimmingly, and 2019 was our best year, and 2020 was looking like it was going to be really rad as well. And then all of this happened, and now we're scrambling just like everybody else. So it's been interesting, but kind of like Brian was saying, There have been a lot of fun moments as well. A lot of, like I'm not, Brian, it sounds like you're a pretty creative guy. And, maybe not as much of a businessman. I'm more the businessy type. And thankfully there are a lot of creative people who work here at Backwoods, who I get to take all the credit for their good ideas. So that's fun for me.
So Steve, it's been how long now since Carson entered? So the phases are different in Washington. For those that don't know, phase 2 in Washington is essentially what phase 1 is in Oregon.
Yep. Only phase 2 sucks because you can only have 5 people at a table. Whereas in Oregon, phase 1, right out the gate, you get 10 people at a table. So now in Skamania County, we're in phase 3, but we're like one of a few counties that are in that. So now we finally get 10 people at a table, and 75% capacity. But we opened up to 50% capacity and 5 people at a table.
So that phase 2 opening for 5 people at a table, 50% capacity. How many weeks ago was that now for you in Skamania there?
I think our first day was, I'd have to look at a calendar, but I think our first day was May 12th. So we had one weekend before Memorial Day weekend. No, that must have been when it was announced. So maybe it was the 15th, something like that.
So you're about
so we got that one kind of warm up weekend where we got crushed. And then Memorial Day weekend where we got super crushed. It's just been kind of pretty crazy ever since then, honestly, because everybody's, the Columbia River Gorge is the place that people go to get out of the highly, condensed populous areas and stuff like that. So we're kind of getting a twofer right now of, people who are excited to just be able to dine out again, and then people who just want to get out of Clark County and Multnomah counties for sure.
So when you say get crushed, I'm sure, and we kind of saw that happen in Clark County as well, in Washington County, all the counties really surrounding Multnomah County have opened before Multnomah County. So I'm sure there's quite a few people here watching right now who are in Multnomah County, and you've described what could possibly be their greatest fear right now. And that is, with regards to the health and safety of themselves, their employees, and their guests. How did you navigate those first few weekends where obviously everybody wanted to go to Backwoods? There was an excitement about, I can finally go get a pint again. How did you manage those crowds and communicate to folks?
So we are really lucky in that we have really awesome landlords. We have a fair amount of space, and we have the ability to just kind of build, we have enough know-how within the house to kind of build whatever we want, whenever we want to build it. And so we kind of tried to think from the, guests' perspective, what we're going to have. We knew that we were going to have the gamut of guests. We were going to have the guests who really didn't care about coronavirus and they just want to sit at a table and they don't, it's not a big deal to them. And then we knew that there were the sort of guests, like our takeout volume was so significant in Carson throughout the entire, even through the pandemic, that we knew that those people were still going to be there. And a lot of them were probably going to be too scared to even want to come in, especially if they saw a giant wall of people waiting to get into the pub. And so we built, but yeah, there was some building involved. We built a takeout window on the north side of our building, so that if somebody showed up and they were like, man, I really want Backwoods food and beer right now, but I do not want to go through that crowd of slobbering people or whatever, then we'd tell them that their order is ready. And then Friday through Sunday, we do our takeout window and then those sorts of things where we just tried to think of the little things that people would want to do and not want to do, paired with just a ton of signage. We put signage all over the place. And my wife, thankfully, is a pretty decent graphic designer. So she was able to whip up some good signs for us, and we got them printed at Staples, and we were able to do all that.
Talk to us a little bit about those signs. What do they say? Where are they located? How are you kind of directing that traffic flow and telling people what to expect, what to do?
Yeah, we put the host front and center right as soon as you entered the gate, so that you would have a human individual to talk to as soon as possible. But even before you walk in the gate, on the other side of the gate, there are the signs saying, like, these are the rules that we have to comply with right now. And just kind of a pro tip for anybody who owns a restaurant right now, blaming it on your state, like all the crazy stuff that you have to do, making sure that people see on the signs and in the verbiage that you're telling them and stuff like that. The more that we said, like, yeah, it's crazy times, state of Washington really wants us to do this, the more it would break down any walls that people had where they were like, oh yeah, we totally get it, that sucks. And so that was definitely a strategy that we figured would be a smart thing to do out the gate. And so that was kind of how we built our signage. We, like the one that said, phase 2, it didn't say like, this is what Backwoods is doing right now. It said Washington State phase 2 requirements, and things like that. And then we did we had a pretty big hangout culture on our patio, and so we did a rule where you have to be sitting at a table in order to be served a beer, and so there were things like that we just tried to kind of make sure that we were doing crowd control just by rules, instead of actually having to walk up to people and be like, hey, you're doing it wrong. This is the way the new world works.
So I like what you did there with the takeout window, and that might be something that folks might not have the ability to build something like that or put it together. But I think that the takeaway there is more of finding a way to have that outlet, whether it's a curbside delivery, some kind of an outlet for those folks that still want to patronize your place. They still want the food, they still want the beer, cider, but making it easy for them to not enter, I think is kind of the takeaway from that piece.
Yeah, I think you could have just as easily done like a takeout station, right outside the front door or something like that, where it's like, hey, stand here and text this number and you'll have your order, or something like that. But of course, we like building things, so we built something. It's fun.
The pushback that you've seen, I've witnessed it too. In what I do with managing a lot of different social media things for restaurants and whatnot, I've seen pushback, and it comes from both ends. Those who want things to be more restrictive, and those who don't understand and don't want the restrictions that you're complying with. I like what you said about the signage, just in how you're phrasing that. Takes a little bit of the pressure off your staff to be the bad guy to anybody. How else? What other pushback have you seen? Is there a situation or anything that you could share with us that's like, hey, we had this person, and here's how we de-escalated the situation. Here's how we explained what was happening.
Just kind of a general story. Maybe one of the most like tactful things our Carson GM has ever done is he said, hey, we're short a host Memorial Day weekend. Steve, can you stand there with the host all weekend and field, like all the, I did do some hosting when we first opened the Pearl, but like, as far as like hosting is a legit job, and it's friggin' hard work. But like he was short a host, so that's real, but he wanted me to be there in case that high school girl, actually she's like college age girl, had trouble dealing with any of the questions that we were going to get from any of the outsiders. And so I think, I don't know, but there was a lot of as the owner of the business, as the leadership of the business, I think you do have to be the one to set the tone. And so like physically standing there and setting the tone for each new interaction that we were going to have that weekend, I think kind of, obviously we were trying to push the onus off of our staff as much as possible already, but then equipping them with the language to be telling people when they got the random questions. That was a pretty big, like I said, it wasn't my idea. It was our GM's idea, but it was cool for me because then it also made me more understanding of, like, hey, here's, when I say, hey, it'd be cool if we did this creative idea, he's like, I don't know if we can do that yet because this, and this is how people are going to perceive this. It helped make me more understanding of that stuff too. So.
Yeah, I really like that. I wasn't aware that had happened. That's a neat thing to think about for those who are considering reopening now that Multnomah County can, as they move towards that. What I'm hearing from a lot of folks is that a lot of those regulars who feel comfortable going back out are some of the first folks who are coming back out, along with kind of this other crowd that is that's just been holed up and anticipating this. Really, I like what you did there in terms of the first face they're seeing is the face of the leader of the company. The face of the brand is one of their first points of contact. I think is hugely helpful in a whole lot of ways, not just in de-escalating things, but even also, like you said, setting the tone. You kind of you're helping folks feel comfortable with coming back, and I love that you did that. I love that you did the signage. I'll share real quickly my first experience going out and back into an open county. It wasn't my own county, and I won't name whose place I went to see, but it was very different than that. The bar was set away from the door, and this was my first time walking into a bar since all of this had happened, just a couple counties away from me. And there was no signage. The person standing behind the bar was the owner, and I wasn't even sure if it was appropriate for me to approach the bar. I'd heard things that you can't sit at the bar, can't be at the bar. So to see the owner and the only person there pouring behind the bar, I went, I don't know what I do. Do I find a seat first? Do I go to the bar? I'm new to this all of a sudden. I'm new to drinking beer all over again.
Right. Yeah.
It made it awkward for me. And of course he did say, yeah, go ahead, come on up here. You can order. I'll hand you the drink. You go sit down. Oh, okay, thank you. And even after I got my beer in my hand, I looked around and went, where do I sit? Is everything open seating? If I see a seat, is it opened? Because again, I'd heard things that talked about how, I don't know, like every other chair is closed or everything's got to be 6 feet apart. So my interpretation of what I'd heard and read versus walking into a place for the first time and actually having to do those things was really different. And I can say I really would have loved if somebody could have greeted me at the door or given me some signage to say, what do I do here? Because I felt awkward with it. And of course it was a pretty normal experience in the end. They had the space for us to sit and everything, but nothing told me what to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely going to be that moment of awkwardness. And it was kind of funny, me being the guy who would like coach people through that moment of awkwardness too. Like, don't worry, come on in. You're like, oh, you just want takeout, just go to the bar. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely, you do get a lot of people kind of like tiptoeing into the gate and you're like, yeah, that's fine. Just, come say hi to me. But of course, you say it's so cool that the owner is there and he's the first person you see. Nobody knew who I was, like except for like my neighbors who showed up that weekend. That was pretty hilarious too. I just looked and I called myself the assistant host all weekend. So that was the role that I was trying to fill.
Well, I love what Chris put in the chat here. That yeah, my experience walking into a bar for a first time, and for a lot of Oregonians, they're going to relate to having to pump their own gas for the first time. It's just like, I'm sure this is easy. I'm sure I know how this works, but somebody go over this one more time with me. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is a whole new world, and the problem with the whole new world too is every single place you go into is going to take those rules and make them their own setup as well. So like your first experience at any individual place is going to be your first experience anywhere,
That's very true. Now that we've been open here in Clark County, I have got to go out to a couple places, and there's a distinct difference between those who have a more open space. It's a little bit more what I call normal. While things are distanced and things like that, you feel like, oh, I walk up, I order at the bar, I go find a place to sit. And then there's places that have a smaller footprint to work with, where you're finding things set up almost like a couple places I've gone have just really had lanes. It's like, hey, if you're getting something to go, head this way, and this is the only place you go. If you're staying here, come around this way, order, and then we'll help you find a seat that's open. There's a lot of different ways of handling that. I've got one more. This is probably my biggest question for you, Steve, that might put you on the spot a little bit. But now that you're opening, getting ready to reopen, and I know you just found out the same time I did here when we started this, and saw the press release in the chat. But as Multnomah County opens and you have your bar and restaurant in the Pearl, what, if anything, are you going to do differently, or are that you not gonna do when you open up in the Pearl? What did you do trying to open up in Carson that you're like, oh, that didn't work. Let's not do that when we open up in Portland?
And I don't want to sound vain. It wasn't me. It's our GM in Carson. He thinks of everything. Like literally everything in Carson worked. And it was, most of it was on his back. My brother Tom thought of the QR code menus. That was what got us on the news. I mean, we were on the news because we were the first restaurant open in Washington, but that was like the big feature, was like me holding the QR codes. So yeah, QR code menus are cool. We're doing that in Portland as well. But like Brian was saying, we are, in Portland, we're similar to Lombard House, where we're like shotgun style. You walk into the main entrance and there's only one place to go. We will have a host like right front and center. So we have the signage as far, like on the floor. We've got the stuff saying like, hey, stay 6 feet apart. And we've got arrows navigating them down the shotgun style. But other than that, our signage is a lot more limited, just because it's so apparent, like what we do. Whereas Carson is just this big kind of sprawling experience. Portland is, kind of your standard pub where it's come in, visit the host. If you want takeout, she'll tell you what to do. He or she will tell you what to do. And then if you want to sit down, then, you'll be on the wait list. Or, both restaurants, we can text you when your table's ready. But that was brand new in Carson too. And Portland had it for a while because people like to walk around the Pearl District. So it's not really things we would do different. It's really just that Portland's a different animal, and they operate differently for sure.
Questions for Steve that maybe I didn't ask?
Steve, would you, I apparently live under a gigantic rock. Tell me a little bit more about this crazy QR code menu. Like, tell me, like, I hadn't heard of that. How does that work, and how did you guys come up with that?
Gosh, I wish I had an example in here, but I definitely do not. So we assumed, well, in the beginning in Washington, and maybe that's still the way that it is, they were saying you couldn't even have plastic covered menus. So we couldn't even wipe down menus after each use, which is what we were planning on doing until they announced the rules. And so it was either going to be paper menus, or we were going to force people to check their phones and see what they wanted to eat based on our website. And there were two problems with that. One, we didn't want to ask people like, hey, go to backwoodsbrewingcompany.com. By the way, company is all spelled out because we're terrible at making domain names. And then secondly, we didn't want them to be able to go onto the website actually, because we do have online ordering now in the Carson pub, and we didn't want them to like place an online order from their table and then everybody in the back get confused, be like, where is this going? They say it's, you know, it's this party, but you're saying that they're at a table. So we set up QR codes that, so when they show up to the table, they have on a little wooden board, they have a little laminated piece of paper so that servers can wipe them down that say, you know, visit our menu. Here's a QR code for the drink menu, and here's a QR code for the food menu. Scan it, you know, and now QR codes are so, you know, widespread that you just open your camera app on your phone. You don't need to download a special app or anything like that. It drops down and then it takes you to a PDF that's hosted on a little QR generator website. So.
Did you, I mean, I know you guys are, you know, out in the backwoods. Hey. Did you have any folks that were like, I don't know, I don't even know how to use a fax. I don't have a cell phone. Like, how did you experience that, and how did you deal with it?
It wasn't necessarily backwoods folks, because believe it or not, we do have cell phones in Skamania County these days. That's like a recent thing. Just kidding. But it definitely older people, not to be ageist, but as soon as they walk in, you know, the servers get the paper menus in their hands and are just like, do you want one of these, or do you know how to use a QR code? And most of the time they want a piece of paper. And a lot of it's too, because you're carrying in this tiny little phone, and, you know, your eyes go more and more as you get older. And so trying to look at a menu on your phone is just no fun. So we wanted to make sure that we had that available. But the idea was just, you know, the amount of printing costs we'd save and the amount of trees we'd save if we just got as many people as possible to scan it from their phones would be hugely helpful. It was 2.5 weeks in that I checked it, and we had 4,000 scans. So that was the moment where I was like, oh, this QR code thing is working out pretty good.
Any other questions for Steve?
I have a question on how you guys handle the bathroom situation. I know you have obviously a much bigger facility than I do, but is there any paranoia around, like, I feel like the bathroom's a place where people are going to be the most freaked out when we reopen?
We have only 2 bathrooms on site. We're building 2 more bathrooms outside. We're building a giant deck outside, which was actually kind of always part of the plan. But once we hit the coronavirus world, we fast-tracked that plan because we knew that we needed to have extra space for social distancing. But with only 2 bathrooms and, you know, a lot of guests, in the summertime we can seat 170 people. It's not a lot. We keep a regular log where this was new to the world of coronavirus. We have a log outside the bathrooms where we're having servers sign off that they check things and things like that. And then we just try and, you know, we do have people running around wiping down handles as much as possible. And I know, Brian, you said that, you know, you don't know how you feel about, you know, you're basically your complicitude in this, you go back and forth is what you were saying. I don't know if it's because we're in this small town and we've been so, like we've had 4 cases in Skamania County, and granted we are bringing in all these people now from other counties. But we have kind of always operated under the idea that as long as we're doing our very damnedest to operate this thing as safe as possible, we feel like we're doing a service by being available to people who really just need a social experience still. So if that makes you feel any better about wanting to reopen, then I hope it does.
Well, I've been doing a little quiz with my drop-offs this week and saying, like, do you actually want to come out, or do you just like feel like you need to come support people? And I feel like a lot of people are, as a bar owner, I think you're always making like an adult decision when you go to a bar, right? There's risks inherent. So I just want to, again, open in a way where we're doing everything we can, but people feel comfortable that you're making an adult decision to come out here and have a drink. And so thanks. It makes me feel better to hear other people say that. That was the big fear of like rushing open without having people feel comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely made sure to communicate that to our staff when we reopened too. We were like, hey, we are going to make this as absolutely safe as possible, but you're going into an environment where you're a frontline worker, and we're all there with you. Like, we will be on the front lines right alongside you, but as a frontline worker, you're taking on a risk, and we appreciate it. We love you all for being here. But if you want to quit, you should do it right now, because we're about to get hammered all summer. And so that was definitely part of our language that we were putting out there, at least to our staff, for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got a bunch of other folks on here. I know we have a bunch of publicans and brewers and other folks in the industry. Are there any more questions, or also, are there any other folks who are have interesting ways that they're kind of tackling this challenge that they'd love to share?
Real quick, Sonia had a question there in the chat. Where have people gotten their branded masks? Anybody here gotten one of those? And if so, where are you getting them printed at? Steve?
Brewery branding. We ordered 500 and got them for like almost $4 a mask, I think.
Cool.
Awesome.
Good old brewery Brandon. Any other questions, or folks who have pieces that they want to jump in on?
I got an answer for Zach from Louis about the ASCAP question.
Oh.
I texted him and he said basically, since you have your licenses, one, he doesn't think they come after you, and if any part of it is raising money for anything, that you would be 100% fine. So he said, go for it.
Nice. And feel free, everyone, at this point in time, we're open for questions. You all have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have a question, jump on in, unmute yourself, and love to hear your wonderful voice. I see that, oh yeah, Chris says, as a customer, put those branded masks out for sale. Pretty sure they're the new beer t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, ours turned out really awesome. Actually, I was pretty happy with how they turned out. So they'll be on the shelf. We gave 2 each to all of our staff first, but
that's awesome.
It's going on the shelf. Cool.
Anyone else? Again, we got some great folks on here. Just the brain power of this crew is pretty impressive. So I'm fishing. I got my eye on a couple of people in here. You know who I'm talking to.
I can share what I mean. We're struggling a little bit right now, but one of the things that we've been doing, which has been actually fun and more therapy for me, is I'm including little watercolors with all of our orders and handmade notes. So I've been painting pint glasses as my like therapy, and my kids are doing it too. And like right now I'm working on our Father's Day package cards. So like these are a little bit more fancy pants. But I have found that like handwriting notes to customers, we've gotten several people who have commented on the handwritten notes. It's sort of like old-fashioned, you know, handwritten letters, but it's not super creative, but that's been our approach, and it's been a good way for me to get rid of really paintings that I'm doing obsessively at night. So, and our labels are watercolors too, so it's not like there is some sort of continuity in the watercolor thing.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Well, anyone else want to jump in? We are reaching kind of the end.
I actually have a question for Jeremiah. Seymour Jeremiah.
Oh, he's on the spot
there
now.
it is. Hey, are you still doing takeout down there? Or?
Oh, Jeremiah, I'm going to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Now,
Yeah.
No, we stopped for the moment. I actually had some water damage in the pinball room. So I can actually.
raining that hard?
Yeah. I'll take you on a little walk around of what my bar looks like right now. So and then I had a 3-door also crash on me, but this is basically, I've been reassembling everything. So for me, it kind of feels like I'm redoing a bar again. So
wow.
Here's my pinball room. But, and then here's all my water damage that I had to tear up the floor and everything.
Oh, no.
Right down to the studs. But as you can see in the back, like, so I had to take out all the pinball tables, but I can add 30 more seats in here. And then with the back patio, I can also add roughly about 40 seats out here. So basically what I've been focusing on, and that you can see is all a bunch of construction right now. But by removing everything and getting everything, you know, out of the way, it brings up my seat capacity to over 100.
That's
So
great.
that's, I've just been, we were doing takeout for a little bit, but it wasn't paying the bills. You know, it would just pay, you know, it's just basically myself being here. But it allows, it was better for me to focus on redesigning the restaurant so we could reopen and not try to worry about, you know, the takeout right now.
Well, in that case, I'm glad I got in on those butter-coated steaks because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, my great 10-year anniversary that I never got to celebrate.
Yeah,
he made meal kits that basically were, how did you age the Angus in butter for like 28 days or what? If I don't know, you can tell the story, but it was amazing.
So it was C-Bar's 18-year anniversary and my 10-year anniversary last in April, what was it, 24th. And so we aged we aged ribeyes in butter for 45 days.
It was amazing.
all I got was a picture, and it was an amazing picture.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. If anyone has any other questions, please.
I do have one quick one for Steve. You guys have any new beers coming out? Anything new on the, you know, that's right on the edge coming out?
Yeah, we do have, I was drinking the Dreamsicle. So this guy,
yeah, you said that.
Yep, this guy's going to be in distribution by 4th of July. And that's going to start our new seasonal 16-ounce can series. So that's fun. We just started a IPA series that this year is going to be all hazy IPAs, and it's called the Venture Forth series. And right now, if you've drank Hazy Nelson, that's part of that series.
Yeah.
And then the next one is not public yet, but I'll just let the cat out of the bag. It's called Outer My Space. We thought about calling it Get Outer My Space to make it a little bit more coronavirus-y. But we thought outer MySpace seemed a little less harsh. So the label for that one's really fun too, and that's all Citra hazy, so that'll be fun.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic, everyone. Thank you so very much. One, I want to say thank you to everyone because we did go over just a hair. So thanks for staying on. I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. We do this every Wednesday. And I'll maybe Michael wants to give a bit of a little teaser for next week.
I was hoping you'd let me give a little teaser for next week. Next week, same time, Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We're going to talk to Berlick, who has been very aggressive on delivery, and talk to them about what that delivery looks like going forward. And we'll also have Paul from Great Notion, and we'll talk to him about the app they launched in the middle of this, and also with their experiencing as we move forward into phase 1 in Multnomah County. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun next Wednesday at 3.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing all of your great information and also your beer. Appreciate it. Thanks for just making sure that's out in the world for us.
For sure.